Tēnā koe. My mother was 17 when she had me, still young, still in high school, and when I was born, my grandmother walked to my mother's house and said, "I'm taking him." My mother looked at my grandmother and hesitantly allowed me to walk out of the home with my grandmother. At that time, my grandmother was the senior matriarch of Waitangi, of Ngāti Rahiri, of Ngāti Kaua, of the Bay of Islands. And she was given that role by our senior kuia at that time, Sophie Taki Moana. Sophie Taki Moana's son was Fudge, o Matua Whare Taki Moana, which was a senior kai kōrero. And being afforded that role on behalf of our hapu, I was raised inside Te Tiriti o Waitangi, 1840 Whare Tupuna. Raised, how I like to put it, under the dresses of my kuia. Interpreted in two ways, could be demeaning, but how I see it, I was raised by the senior kuia of Ngāpuhi, Nui Tonu at that time. When there was a deceased body, I was one of those young children that was given black balls or mints to suck in the whare tupuna. So I was afforded the privilege to eat whilst there was a deceased. I never spoke much, but I was placed in a position where I observed what was going on. I listened to what was going on, and I felt what was going on. As a young child, obviously you feel very envious that, well, your cousins, your friends or new children are playing on the forecourt of the marae, laughing, playing, screaming, crying, that you peer out of the gap of the meeting house or you see a young body running past the entrance of the whare tupuna. You desire to be outside in the sun, to laugh and play with your peers. But that wasn't the case. I was to sit in the meeting house. And a curse at the time, right now it's a blessing. Because they saw something, they knew something, they had aspirational desires that I was immature or not mature enough to know at that time. And as I developed through life, the age of 14, I was given the mandate on behalf of Ngāti Rahiri, Ngāti Kaua, to speak on behalf of my hapu, to be a kai kōrero. And it was a position that I again took for granted, young, full of testosterone, full of desire to seek what the world had to offer. Though it was a position that I couldn't relinquish, I couldn't let go. I would go stating I would never return home, but a week later, 2 weeks at the max, back in Waitangi. And from then to the age of 25, I was given the mandate as a rangatira, or as a leader for my people. That role I looked after for a very long time, until some 4 years, being mandated on behalf of Ngāpuhi to be a kai kōrero, spokesperson on behalf of our iwi. These are the cultural roles that I carry, that I honour and I cherish. In my professional career, I went to Moeroa Primary School, or otherwise known as Tuna Town. So because I was living in Waitangi at that time, my mother was still living in Moeroa, so she always wanted to be the mother, and she always had a love for me, and it's a love a son will always have for his mummy. Taku mummy, tērā. So she was staying in Moeroa, and sometimes I would go and live with her for periods of time. And whilst living with my mother in Moeroa, I attended Moeroa Primary School. One of our primary school teachers was June Few, Mrs. Few. Lovely lady, and I think most children within our small community of Moira will always acknowledge Mrs. Few for her kind nature. And she taught me my first kapahaka bracket, right? And that's the desire for cultural performing arts. And I was privileged to do my first challenge or taki to welcome our manuhiri to our school. So from Moeroa Primary School, I then went to Bay of Islands College, and it was at Bay of Islands College I first came in contact with Matua Wiramu indirectly. Matua Wiramu being the senior captain of Ngāpuhi Matawhāuru in his time. Indirectly saw this chap with whiskers, white whiskers, pointy, sharp, had a manner about him too. When he walked into a room that he demanded that authority without requesting of it. Myself and my grandmother were setting the net and in Pākaraka, and I was bringing the net full with eels and taking it to our vehicle. And as we got closer to the vehicle, we noticed there was a man standing there. My grandmother was, "Oh, what does the farmer want?" As we got closer to the silhouette of a man, she uttered to herself, "Oh, it's handlebars." Looked at it, I was like, "Oh, that's that kaumātua." Went up close. He looked me up from my foot all the way to the tip of my hairs. And he said to my grandmother, "Give me your mokopuna. I'll raise him." From the age of 13 till he passed, he was my main kaiako, my pautikanga, my cultural advisor, my rangatira, my chief. Where he went, I went, and he nurtured me. And before he passed, there were 3 of us in particular that he raised. Mukai Hura, Albert Cash, and myself. Each of us, he gave a different role. And my role was to be a spokesperson. And he pushed me to where I am today. Professionally, I've worked over 14 years within the public sector, 8 years within the Department of Corrections, the justice sector, 4 years for the Ministry of Children, Oranga Tamariki. And at present I sit at the governance board for the Department of Corrections and manage and govern the affairs of Northern Region Corrections Facility, which is our local correction site here in New Zealand. And at present I'm the Senior Crown's Relationship Manager for Te Runanga Iwi o Ngāpuhi, which is the largest iwi in Aotearoa, and that carries the aspirations of the 190,000 people that call themselves a descendant from the tribe of Ngāpuhi. Second to that, I'm a Principal Engagement Advisor for Tupu Tonu, which is in charge of the $150 million investment program that we seek to purchase commercial assets for the benefit of Ngāpuhi Nui Tonu. So when we do get to a time where we settle our treaty settlements or our cultural redresses, our commercial redresses, we then have a large asset to give back to our people. Now, I think the impetus of this korero, where this korero is heading. Hand on my heart and solemnly swear, I have no qualifications, I have no degrees, I have no bachelors or masters. I've been afforded these privileges based on the ancient teachings of our ancestors, of our tupuna, enduring knowledge, epistemology that travelled from Hawaii to Aotearoa, that's entrenched itself into our everyday life. Now, I don't say that in a manner to boast. I say that in a manner that our tupuna have the secrets to distill the disparity and deprivation we currently face in all facets of life. I say that with the utmost respect and humility to ancient indigenous knowledge. I say that to promote that indigenous knowledge is the secret to unravel the distortions in this day and age. I say that to acknowledge our tupuna They traversed the Pacific Oceans, the treacherous oceans. They climbed the many mountains. They discovered these lands we call Awatearoa, Aotearoa, New Tireni. They discovered these lands we call home. The lands that encapsulate the ancient bones of our ancestors. They fought the fight that we may stand on our own integrity, on our own mana motuhake, and on our own self-reliance. Now, where does that reliance come from? That reliance comes from the ancient mātauranga, or knowledge that has been handed down from each dispensation to another dispensation to us here in 2022. For the Ngāpuhi nation, for the Māori nation, for the Māori people, tomorrow is a significant day. Tomorrow is the day we welcome our first Māori mayor to the chambers of the Far North District Council. Along with our first Māori mayor we've had for a very long time, we also acknowledge and welcome our 4 Māori councillors that take up their place within the Māori seats that have been specially allocated to our people. Through the aspirations and desires as articulated by my ancestors behind me, their thoughts and dreams were encapsulated in te tiriti o Waitangi and he whakaputanga. And may I share a small snippet within both of the documents. Ko mātou, ko ngā tino rangatira. We are the almost in authority of this land. That's what I see. That's what I know. I'm privileged and humbled to say 2022, we're living the dream that our ancestors fought for some 184 years. We've been neglected, we've been pushed to the side, but because of stalwarts such as Tahi Mihenare, such as Whina Kupa, such as Mira Shaji, such as Maturata, such as Titewhai Harawira, they fought the fought that we won't need to. Now it's our role, our job, for those within the 30 to 40 year bracket to take up the challenges that they left behind, to run with their dreams, to run with their aspirations and start to indent it. By the time 2040 comes, or 2050, 2030, I want there to be a Māori mayor. There's a Māori Governor General. How beautiful is that? Our Māori people are taking positions of authority, positions of power, and are not consulting anymore. They're leading, which is what I see as the essence of my role from this point forth. Is not to put our people in high-ranking positions, is to bring our people together. I've ceased to use the term kotahitanga, and the term that I use when I mix with the 110 hapu that collectively make up Ngāpuhi, the 9 takiwā, the 9 boundaries or districts that make up the Ngāpuhi iwi, from as far as Ramarama, the Bombay Hills, south of Auckland, to Te Haukotiu, to Te Rerenga Wairua, Cape Reinga, from as far as Hokianga to the west coast, to Te Pēwhairangi in the east coast, right through to Te Pū o Te Whiki, the centre. Our job, my job, or people of my equivalence role is to bind our people together. On the notion of waka kotahi, we must return back to the ancient thoughts, aspirations of kupe, of puhi, of nuku tawhiti. They binded the waka matawhaurua to get from Hawaii to Aotearoa. Nuku tawhiti binded the waka ngātoki matawhaurua to get from Hawaii to Aotearoa. It's our role to continue to bind our people together so that we can project ourselves into the near future, thus benefiting not just our Māori people, but all indigenous races that call Aotearoa or Awatearoa home. Te pū o te whiki. Te pū o te whiki is an ancient map that describes the centre of Ngāpuhi. Pū, the stomach, the pū manawa, the pū oro, te pū o te tangata, or the centre of Ngāpuhi. Te pū o te whiki is the centre because it takes a half an hour from Kaikohe to drive to Hokianga. It takes a half an hour from Kaikohe to drive to Pewhairangi. It takes 3.5 hours to drive from Kaikohe to Cape Reinga, to the far north. It takes 3.5 hours to drive from Kaikohe to Tāmaki Makaurau. There's an adage that comes to mind, a proverb. Kia ruku hohonu, kia ruku whānui, kia ruku teitei. To look to the depths of the ocean, to look to the heights of the sky, and to survey the vastness of the lands. Our people left these stories etched on the mountains, on the rivers, on the oceans, as a reminder for our new generation, how close we are. And through sayings such as Te Pū o Te Whiki, we're reminded that if there's a death in Hokianga, the people of the Bay of Islands go. If there's a death in the Bay of Islands, the people of the Hokianga goes. So these narrations that have been left for us are all based on tuitui, all based on binding each other, all based on a collectiveness that we have the best outcomes in mind. And those best outcomes, we've coined the term, let's make mokopuna decisions. Let's make decisions that will benefit our tomorrow people. 2023, we commemorate the 100th centennial of our whare tupuna. Te tiriti o Waitangi, tahi mano warurau whātekau. And the fact that it's reached such a honourable age is something that we as its ukeras, as its kaitiaki, feel that we need to acknowledge and symbolise such an occasion. So we've been blessed, our people, Ngāti Rāhiri, Ngāti Kawa, our 10 primary family of the area, to start to fundraise, to start to put our aspirations on what we see this whare tupuna looking like. Because we want to make mokopuna decisions. We want this house to stand for another 100 years, if not more. Thus, a three-phased approach to the development and the reconstruction of our whare tupuna. The first phase would be to acknowledge the 100th centennial by the restructuring of the whare tupuna, doing it up, fixing up the cracks and the minor adjustments. Second phase is to continue to develop the carved meeting house and fully carve it so that it can continue to share the stories that have been left by the generation of Tahimi Henare. We continue to acknowledge Kupe, and he will never be forgotten. But we want to cement and solidify today's people so that in another 100 years, our tupuna, our children, can have a chronological order of events that took place on our land. As such, we desire to carve the internal of the meeting house and to decorate our whare tupuna with relationships such as Hokulea, such as Hawaii, such as Tahiti Nui, such as Te Kingitanga, tō tātou wariki nui a tūheitia noho ki runga ki tāna erewa. Me ngā whakapapa katoa and the many genealogical links that we know will benefit our children. And this is the excitement that we're currently feeling, and the synergy that runs within our people to continue to progress our aspiration of binding. And as such, the binding continues. And it's a process that will always continue. But if we cement the relationship, forge the relationships now, we know by the time our children come, or our children, our next leaders, they will be reaping the rewards of our hard work, not trying to do the hard work. Tērā tā tātou aro ngā nui. These are some of our aspirations. And the final phase is to build a congress at Te Taurangatira, which is the site where all the leaders of Aotearoa gathered to discuss he wakaputanga, the Declaration of Independence, or otherwise noted as the proclamation of our sovereign rights, before they signed that on the 28th of October 1835. Our chiefs throughout Aotearoa again gathered at the Taurangatira to commemorate and to discuss the 22 articles that were placed in front of them by Mr. Hobson, the Queen's representative at that time. From the 22 articles that were presented to the Ngāpuhi chiefs, they were pushed to the side, and only three were presented, with the fourth giving an oral statement. But it was at Taurangatira where those important discussions took place. So how do we capitulate that? Our only thought is to redesign so that it acknowledges those relationships, but not just to our own people, but all Indigenous cultures that are seeking alternative perspectives, alternative conversations. This then surmises the notion of haere tonu te tui tui i a Ngāpuhi, will continue to bind together our people. I think what COVID also brought was the time for us to reconnect with our people. Although we couldn't do it in person, the ability to connect virtually was something I cherish, I loved, because we connected with those of our sub-tribes not living in New Zealand, America, Australia, Sydney, you name it, they joined because they had the ability to join, which brought forth a notion of tui tui. Now, what we found when we started connecting with our relations all across the world, we found different expertise, we found different skill sets, we found different ports of contribution that would go into the design and the concept of our new whare. It took us 2 years to go through that. There's a lot of discussions, there's a lot of changing, there's a lot of engagements with different professionals' expertise. But we're now at a place where our final concept has been agreed to.